Yo, what is going on, you guys? Welcome back to a brand new video. And in today's video, I'm bringing you another fanfiction video, which is part 3 to what if Tobey Maguire was in the MCU. If you haven't seen the first or second part, I highly recommend you go and check those out. The link will be in the description down below, next to the related videos tab. With that being said, if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button if you do enjoy my content, and make sure to hit that bell if you want to be notified as soon as I upload so you can get the videos as soon as they go up. But with that out of the way, I bring you what if Tobey Maguire was in the MCU? Part 3. So at the end of the last Spider-Man movie, which was Spider-Man 4 in the MCU, we have learned that Peter has learned to move on from MJ after the events of Spider-Man 3, and Peter is a changed man. We then move forward past Avengers Age of Ultron, which will be exactly the same as the movie was originally and without Spider-Man. And now we get to the start of Phase 3, which is where things really start to change. For the most part, I want to keep the Civil War story the same, but now that we have Spider-Man in the mix as an already established hero in this universe, we can play off this fact a lot for story elements here as well. In the comic book Civil War, the story was heavily focused around Spider-Man and his identity, and with him switching teams halfway through. I want to create a similar sort of effect here to an extent. So the Civil War story will start, and it'll be relatively the same with Tony learning about the woman's son who died in Sokovia, and then the Sokovia Accords will be brought around, and that every superhero or Avenger will turn themselves into the government, and will be under government jurisdiction on when to be employed to battle where they see fit. So obviously this will play out the same. Tony will side with the government and Cap won't, except there's one twist. Any superhero that signs the contract also has to reveal their identity if they haven't done so already. So at this point that would affect obviously Bucky, as he's currently on the run as the Winter Soldier, and this would affect none other than Peter Parker because he is Spider-Man. Now I must clarify, all of the Bucky and Cap stuff will happen in this movie, I just won't be touching on it as much, as I'm going to be focusing on where Spider-Man affects the story and focus on his side of the story for this video. So this will affect Peter the most out of everyone though, as his secret identity is a big part of what makes him Spider-Man. Not only does Peter Parker represent the everyman and woman, but Peter keeps it to himself for himself. That way criminals and whoever can't hurt the people he loves around him. Throughout the first act of the movie, where all the Avengers are discussing and arguing over what they will do about the situation, Peter will be in a conflict within himself. You see, Peter can't reveal his identity to the public and to the government because of the risk of his enemies knowing who he is, like Venom, Doc Ock, or whoever might come in the future. But at the same time, if he doesn't sign the Accords, he has to retire as Spider-Man, which would then be going against the whole "with great power comes great responsibility" line, which Peter stands by so greatly. The very line said by his late uncle that fuels Peter's need to get out of bed every morning and go and save people and help every single day. You see, Uncle Ben will be a huge influence in this movie, and this is starting here. But with the new Accords, he's stuck. He reveals his identity or he can't be Spider-Man. It's either one or the other. Peter realizes it boils down to two things. Does he just want to keep the ones he loves safe, or does he want to carry on protecting the people of the city like he's been doing? After all, through Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3, the city has always been on Peter's side and supported him. He can't turn his back on everyone now. So then this internal conflict with Spider-Man will turn him more towards Tony's side. A couple of scenes will go by and we will have a scene with Peter and Tony. Tony is going to ask Peter if he's okay with doing this, and Peter says that he's doing the right thing. And then we get a scene where the Accords are going down, and this time, as people sign them, Spider-Man will swing in for a big reveal. He will stand on the stage as T'Chaka will hand Spider-Man the microphone, and Spider-Man says that he has a very big announcement to make. He says that in all of this he's going to do the right thing, and he's going to carry on serving the people of New York and sign the Accords. But first he needs to let the world know who Spider-Man is. But before Peter can take off the mask, the explosion goes off in the building, and T'Chaka, like in the original movie, will die. Peter's costume will be all torn up, and T'Challa will be pissed. This time, when Cap chases down Bucky in the next scene along with Black Panther, Spider-Man will be on the scene too with them. You see, this will be a direct callback to the comics where Peter takes off his mask to reveal to the world who he really is. But I'm not actually going to do that here, as I think the world knowing who Spider-Man is takes away from the character. The rest of the movie plays out the same, and all the Cap and Bucky stuff happens at the same time. They are on the run and now labelled as war criminals. Team Tony, like in the actual movie, are tasked with bringing them in and taking them down. This now obviously includes Spider-Man. There will be a scene with Peter and Tony before they go to the airport with Black Widow. Peter will say we're gonna bring them in, but says for Tony to promise that no one will get hurt, and Tony will agree. So with Cap and all that on the run, there is no time for Peter to reveal his identity and get into all of the political stuff, as there are bigger things here at stake. So then we get to the airport fight scene where Team Tony encounter Cap. Cap is obviously trying to convince Tony about who the real villain is, Zemo, and how he's been behind all of this. In the battle, however, Cap will encounter Spider-Man. They will have their little dialogue exchange, except it's different. Because Peter is way more experienced, and if not the most experienced superhero there, Cap will be way more understanding with Spider-Man. Cap says that if he sides with Tony, his identity will be revealed, and that is something that Team Cap is fighting to protect, obviously when it comes to the whole Bucky situation. Cap also explains to Peter how everything is really political, and that the government would control Spider-Man. His life as Peter Parker would be no longer. He wouldn't be fighting for the everyman, he'd be fighting for the rich above. This resonates with Peter. You see, Peter being on Team Tony undoes most of what Spider-Man stands for. Even though there is that great responsibility of being Spider-Man, if he sides with the government and fights wherever they see fit, then he becomes less relatable as a person, as a character. Peter then isn't the everyman. One crucial thing about Spider-Man is his relatability and the fact that anyone could be under the mask. That's what makes him so special, and that's what will be taken away if his secret identity is revealed. Siding with the government would reveal who he is, and Peter was only concerned about the people he loves. But now Peter's learning curve starts here. It wouldn't just affect the people he loves, but everyone who has ever looked up to Spider-Man. All those people that cheered him on as he saved the city countless times. He has to think about them as well. Them knowing who Peter is will take away from the mystery, it'll take away from the excitement, it'll take away from the everyman aspect. Peter resonates on this for a moment before fighting Cap again. It's at the back of his mind, but he hasn't fully switched sides yet. And then instead of War Machine getting hurt in the fight, it will be Falcon that gets hurt really bad. It's someone on Team Cap's side. Peter then realizes, and this sets him off, he didn't want anyone to get hurt. Tony lied. Peter has a go at Tony, and Tony says that he didn't want this either, but Ross was going to cancel all of them if they didn't bring them in soon. Peter says that Tony is unbelievable and realizes now what Cap told him. It's just all a political game. The ship takes off with Cap and Bucky, and Spider-Man sneaks on the bottom of it, latching onto the side of the plane. Now the reason why Spider-Man would show up at the final battle is because, like Iron Man and Cap, he is a big player in this universe, much bigger than Tom was at this point, because obviously he was the first hero in the universe chronologically. Then obviously Iron Man will show up to the scene. There will be an intense scene where Peter and Cap and Bucky meet, and Peter will say he's on their side and he just wants the fighting to stop, and he thought about what Cap said. Then Tony will show up on the scene and they will all come to a truce, just like in the original movie. Then Tony will find out that Bucky was the one who killed his parents, and it all kicks off again. Tony will fight Cap and Bucky, but Spider-Man won't fight on either side necessarily. Spider-Man in this story is the middle ground. He sides with Cap, but understands Tony at this point too, because Bucky killed Tony's parents, which, would you know, is similar to how Uncle Ben died for Peter. So Peter would level with Tony and understand his anger, because if you remember back to Spider-Man 1, Peter was exactly the same. So instead of fighting on either side, Peter will try and stop the conflict and try and convince Tony that there's a bigger picture, but it won't work. Peter will get trapped somewhere for a while when Tony, Cap and Bucky will have their final fight like in the real movie, just to give those guys their moment. Then Cap will walk off with Bucky and will drop the shield. We will then get a scene where Peter encounters T'Challa, and they will have a little dialogue exchange before they both stop Zemo in this version together and take him away. And then the rest plays out the same. T'Challa takes Bucky to Wakanda with Cap, Peter goes back to being Spider-Man, and Tony never gets him to sign the Accords. And that is part 3, and part 4 we'll discuss Infinity War and Endgame, and then after that I'm done and the focus is on the Sinister Six fan-made story before moving directly to my big finale, Spider-Verse. With that being said, thank you all so much for watching the video. If you did, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you are new, hit that bell next to the subscribe button to not miss any more content, and with that being said, thank you all for watching and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.